What is a Faretta hearing in Oklahoma criminal courts? I'm Tulsa Attorney James Worth, and that is the question that we have. It's brought up because we had a recent case from the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals, and that went to me thinking, well, we haven't really talked about a Faretta hearing. It doesn't come up all that often, but it goes back to 1975, and it's a United States Supreme Court case of Faretta v. California, and it has to do with having a hearing to determine whether someone is competent and is knowingly choosing to represent themselves. So under the United States Constitution, it's been determined you have the right to represent yourself if you're being charged with a crime in the United States. And that applies in any state, but we're talking specifically about Oklahoma. So if you're charged with a crime in Oklahoma, you have the right to represent yourself. Now, that may not be the best decision to make. Our advice is always to have an attorney represent you that is more familiar and has experience doing this and can have an outside perspective to see how potential jurors would be more likely to see your case. So that's always going to be the best legal advice, is to get an attorney to represent you, but you do have the right to represent yourself. And in the Faretta case, in determining whether this person can represent themselves, the court was asking questions about their understanding of the evidence code or hearsay. And the judge in that case decided, well, they don't understand the rules for evidence. So how can they represent themselves? And determined that they can't, they didn't have that right. Went up to the United States Supreme Court, and they sent it back and said, no, you don't have to pass a test to understand the rules in order to represent yourself. It's a constitutional right. All it has to do is that you have to be voluntarily requesting to represent yourself, and it has to be intelligently done so, meaning you have to understand what you're doing in making that decision. You have to understand the risks of representing yourself and the opportunity to get court-appointed counsel or hire your own counsel. And knowing all those things, and you are competent and of sound mind, if you determine to represent yourself, even if you know nothing about how the law operates inside the courtroom, that is your right, and you can represent yourself. So a Faretta hearing is a hearing that is when a defendant requests to represent themselves. You have that hearing to determine whether their request to represent themselves is voluntary and intelligent. And what the Faretta precedent tells us is that doesn't mean they have to understand the law, just means that they have to understand the potential consequences of representing themselves and that they are competent and of sound mind. So that is a Faretta hearing in the state of Oklahoma and any other state in the United States. If you're dealing with a scenario in a criminal court, my advice, hire an attorney. Talk to a few different ones, pick out the one you want. If you want to talk to an attorney with my law office, you can get that scheduled by going online to makelawEasy.com.